This video is going to cover the Module 4 Exhibit 3 assignment, and on this assignment we're going to concentrate on the clipping mask. And I'm just going to go through a brief explanation of how to use a clipping mask and maybe some ideas that you might want to use for your exhibit. So I've opened up a picture of apples. Looks like some apples maybe at a grocery store, and that's going to be the background for my clipping mask. And the first thing I need to do is change my background layer into a layer. So I'm going to right click on that and select layer from background. And then I'm just going to use the layer 0 default name. And for my type layer, I'm just going to use an impact, and I'm going to use the 300 point font. So I'm going to just type apples. And I'm using the move tool and move that down a little bit on the screen. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a style to this. So I'm just going to select stroke, and I'm going to add the white to it. So now I've got apples with a white stroke. And the next step is I'm going to clip my apple image to the text. So to do that, I'm going to raise my apples layer above, because your image always has to be above the text. And then once I have that in place, I'm just going to use my Alt key, and then I'm going to click between these two. And then that's going to add the clipping mask, and you can see it inserted the image into the text. Now my layer is still there, it's just been clipped to apples. Now for this, I want to create a reflection of the word apples below. So I'm going to use black for my background color on that. So I'm going to make another layer, and this layer is going to go at the bottom, and then I'm just going to go over and get my paint bucket and make this black. Okay, so now I've got my apples, look at the background, black. So the next thing I'm going to do is, because I want to have a reflection of the word apples, I'm going to select my layer 0, and then I'm going to hold down on my shift key, and I'm also going to select apples. And then with both of those selected, then I'm just right clicking, and then I'm going to select duplicate layers. And now I've added a layer 0 copy and an apples copy. And if I go up and use my move tool, you can see I have two separate layers there. Now I want this to look like a reflection, so I'm going to go use my edit, and under transform there's an option to flip vertical, so I'm going to select that. And then once again I'm just going to use my arrow key and increase that, and then I'm going to lower my original layer. I'm going to select apples so they'll both come, and then I'm going to move those down so a bit closer together. Okay, so now I have the reflection below this. I want to make it look like the reflection has a shadow on it. And to do this, I'm going to go back up, and I'm going to click my layer 0 copy at the top, and I'm going to add another layer. And on this layer, I'm going to use a gradient. And I'm going to use, this is basically going to create a mask, and it's going to cover up the bottom part of the word apples that's been inverted. So on this layer 2, once it's selected, under my bucket is a gradient tool. And on this, I want to use the second option, that's the foreground to transparent. So I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to come down here to the bottom of my picture, and I'm just going to click, and I'm going to drag this about 3/4 of the way up. and then that's going to put a grading effect on this. So I think I want this to even be a little bit darker. So I'm going to just go back and keep adding. And once again, this is kind of your own preference. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to also shift the Apple picture layer and the Apple copy layer, and I'm going to decrease the opacity. And then I'm also going to decrease the fill. And then I'm going to shut off my effects. Okay, a little bit too far on the opacity. Okay, so now just looks like I have a shadow of the reflection below the word Apple. Once again, if I decide that if it's too much, then I can easily go back just like on a regular mask and remove part of the black and increase the reflection. So, as I said, this is just a quick example of how you can create a clipping mask. One other quick thing I am going to show you in case you want to, if you want to use, for example, white, what you can do in that case is I'm going to select this layer 1, and I'm going to switch my layers to white. And then I'm going to come back here with my paint bucket and paint white. Now I've got this black gradient. So what I would need to do in this case is I'm going to go back up here and I'm just going to delete that layer 2 and create another layer. And then this time when I go to select my gradient, it'll be inverse. It's going to be white to transparent. So then I can do the same thing. Now in this case, I may want to go and increase my opacity a little bit more so you can see. Okay, so just the same example with using white instead of black. Once again, you would just make sure that you selected white for your foreground color, and then when you did that, then on your option for your gradient, it'll change it then to white for the foreground to transparent. I hope you have a lot of fun creating this. You can use about any background you'd like to. Maybe it's some type of scenery, maybe some mountains, the ocean. Maybe it's something that you'd like to do for a business or a club or your school. Endless possibilities with using a clipping mask. And so for this for this assignment, I would like you to use some type of text with an image to create a clipping mask, and then I'd like also for you to add the shadow effect to this. So I hope you have fun with this assignment, and I look forward to seeing what you create.